What's up, guys? Welcome to another Car Meet Garage. I'm Don, and we're here with our buddy Pat, who through years of car stuff, we've actually kind of on the side known each other for a long time, and I'm glad we're actually in this shop because it is big and there's a lot of cool stuff in here with equipment and go fast stuff, and he does go fast stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us, Pat, and inviting us in.
Well, thanks for coming.
Seeing how you're probably one of the oldest bastards we've had on here,
Yep.
how'd you kind of get your start?
Well, I was pretty much born into this. My dad used to race, and ever since I can remember, my dad's been working on hot rods, My dad used to race an altered at Tri-City and had a Chrysler Hemi, and my dad was constantly getting Chrysler Hemis, so I remember looking at a Chrysler Hemi in the pantry, was taller than me. And, my dad kept the Chrysler Hemi crankshafts in the pantry until one fell on my ma's foot, and then the cranks disappeared.
Love how that works, huh?
Yeah, that's how that works. But yeah, I didn't have much choice into it. My dad was a mechanic and did a lot of different things, and been around hot rods and cars all my life. So that's just what I'm doing. Man,
I'm glad you stuck with it because you're good at it.
I spent a lifetime doing it, and the reason why I got into the hobby is because I wanted to go fast, and I liked racing people, and you're not supposed to talk about that, so we won't talk about it.
You do not talk about Fight Club.
But I think you've been around as long as I have, damn near, and know that some of that stuff used to happen, and I like to win, so...
Right now we just go to Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico's nice this time of year. Unfortunately, the roads aren't very good. But, so, I got into a situation where I wasn't making a lot of money, and I was a younger kid, but I had interest, and I just worked on, models and played around with Briggs and Strattons like a lot of kids did, and I guess our era. Maybe they don't do that as much now. But anyways, I just started doing things. Hey, I can't afford to do this. I want to do it. I'm going to learn how to do it, and I'm going to do it. And that's how it all got started. My dad passed away when I was 10 years old. He had a garage full of Hemis, an altered dragster, if you don't know what that is. It's basically a 23 T-bucket on a fiberglass body, and it's got slicks on it and zoomies and,
all the cool stuff.
All the cool stuff, and and then he had a 34 Ford chopped and channeled truck that originally was going to go to Bonneville that came from Bay City. My dad was in the Army, and he had to go to the Army because, well, he did things on the street he wasn't supposed to. So he'd come back from the Army, and he wanted something to put his Hemi in. He had a Hemi, and he had bought a 34 Ford chopped and channeled truck. And when my dad died, I wanted to put the truck together. And when I was going through high school, even younger, I was about 12 years old, I started working on this truck in my mom's garage. And I got it up to rolling and steering, and because it was just a shell. But I lost interest in it, and I sold it to a friend of my dad's that always wanted it. The truck was actually had some interesting Bay City history for older hot rods, and I know a lot of these guys that used to be in the hot rodding with my dad, and that unfortunately most of them are all gone.
Yeah.
So
we're losing some great ones.
And so I had a choice to get my dad's GTO back. My mom sold it to a guy on the south end, said, when you're done with it, when you want to get rid of the car, let us know. My son would like a chance getting the car back. The car's got a lot of history in town. The car's had a lot of history with my dad and our family. So I got rid of the 34 Ford, and I got into my GTO. And the body work and the machine work and the fabrication work's all been a run off of me learning to do stuff that I just couldn't afford to have somebody else do the way I wanted it done. And that's kind of where I am right now, right here.
Ironically enough, one of the interviews we were at today, that's actually his car he was talking about that he wanted was, you ask, what's one of your cars you would love to own, like a bucket list car, and that was bucket list car. which is kind of cool that we're, you know, a couple interviews later and we're like, hey, look, there it is. Because Grant's interview goes a couple before yours, and there it sits. Yeah. We should have brought Grant with us.
That car's got a lot of interesting history in town, and that car deserves something, I guess.
Yeah. So, what year GTO is it?
It's a 1966 GTO. It was born at. It was bought at McCarthy Pontiac Cadillac in Midland.
Okay.
And there was two of them cars on the lot. There was a black one and a gold one. That car originally was gold. Some parts got switched around, but apparently this car, from friends that are no longer here, or my dad, of course, he died when I was 10, but I got the car back, but it was supposed to be a tri-power car, but it's gone. This car has had more engines than any car ever in this town, period, and I'll bet money on it. My dad had like 3 engines in it before 1968. I got the Protecto plate and the warranty. He did the warranty work on it, and it had like 23,000 miles on it. It said dirty oil, and then it said no oil pressure. Then it said replace oil pump, and then it just went. It kind of went that way. My dad was hard on stuff. He was a street racer. He'd run that thing right to the end, and the old 389 Pontiac just didn't like that. So it's had Chevys in it since probably '68, and it's always had a Chevy in it since then. And I've had my share of many Chevys through it. It's
a lot. There's a lot more of those motors out there than there is the old Pontiacs.
Well, he tried a Pontiac after that because in '67 they were 400s, and he put a 400 in it, and it didn't even last, I think, maybe a month and a half or something. My dad just loved going top end, and he liked getting way out there. And
how much RPM? Yes.
Yeah, he was hard on stuff, but so the car's had a lot of small blocks in it, and it's had a lot of big blocks in it. And my dad ended up being disabled, back problems, and I used to help him when I was a kid. Probably like 9 or 10, I'd sit in the fender wells and put the spark plugs and help them bolt the engines in them, because that's how my dad made his money.
Yeah.
He'd put an engine in it and say, hey, you looking for a 383 or a 283 or a 350, a 327? I got one, and let's go for a ride. And he'd give guys rides. They'd show up at the house, he'd give them a ride, and then next day we're pulling the engine out of the GTO again, and that happened quite a bit. And then that's, the history of the car. When it got back from me, then that history kind of continued, but with bigger engines,
What motor's in it now?
Yeah, there was a lot of people at first that wanted to know how big that engine was, and you
can ballpark it, that's fine.
No, I don't care. It don't matter. That engine's been in there for 20 years. It's been in and out twice, but it's a 632 all aluminum big block, Donovan block. And it weighs 460 pounds from the oil pan to the intake, and I made most of the stuff that's on the engine. I built the oil pan, I built the headers, I built a lot. The thing that I like about that car the most, which I like my Chevy too, I like that car, I can't forget that, but I like that car because people think they have no idea what's underneath that car. I mean, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. When you look at it, you go, that's a nice old GTO. It's a nice old GTO, but assuming that it's got a stock nice old engine in it, you'd be sadly mistaken.
Right, because right now it's covered in the plastic, and you can tell that it's just a beautiful car, and you wouldn't expect it to have a 632 Donovan in it. Like, that's pretty incredible. If you guys out there don't know what that is, Google it. Pause right now. Pause it. Go to Google. Open it up. Look it up. You'll appreciate it. It's a hell of a motor, and they make a lot of steam. So, Pat, how much steam does that Donovan makes? If you had a ballpark.
Well, I built it. I mean, that's what I do for a living. I build engines. I built a lot of 632s, and I've got a lot of them. Well, I had a few of them out hill and hole, and running up the snow steep, whatever, hills there up north. I can't think of it. Shush Mountain. There's one on the wall over there. It probably makes an easy 900 horse. Yeah, I'd say that. It's a little bit limited because I didn't want to cut the car up to put a better intake on it. But, you know, it's hurting probably about 40 horse just with the intake.
Oh, I can appreciate the good clean install though. Like you know, sometimes you cut it up and it takes away from the line. The factory got it right because those cars were designed by, crap, what's his name? It's
you're thinking of DeLorean.
Yes,
John DeLorean.
John DeLorean.
John's brother used to, the DeLorean brothers were big in Pontiacs and high performance.
Yeah.
I've worked on a couple. I've been lucky enough to actually have worked on a couple of things that were pretty darn close to them. I've done a lot of work. A lot of people don't know. I've done a lot of work out of this shop for a lot of places that are not going to advertise that I did work for them, which is fine because they paid me, you know.
Right.
But yeah, John DeLorean and his brother were big in Pontiacs.
Oh, huge.
And yeah, and he got Pontiac on going into street racing and whatnot on Woodward. And so yeah, I didn't want to cut the car. Now I had another GTO that was cut to the gills. I had that car. It was tubbed, of course, and the car was lowered on the chassis, and the chassis, everything was reinforced, and you know, it was strictly a drag car.
Good purpose-built race car.
Yeah, and I didn't want that. I mean, it was to the point where I can't even take this to go down the road and get an ice cream. And at least if I'm gonna, so I decided not to cut that one as much. And getting the front weight off the car was key to getting the car to actually try to hook up. The car does somewhat hook up, but you can't. You're just not going to go through the gears with your foot to the floor. The gas pedal is there to add to it. You know, you just don't put your foot to the floor and go through 3 gears because you'll be in the ditch before you get to 3rd. So you drive it with the gas pedal and you drive it with your butt cheeks. You know, when it starts getting really loose, then you know you got to learn how to back out of it. Of course, these cars, and my good friend knows how to drive it. It's got to get up on its back tires. Once this car does its transfer and it gets up on the back tires, you can pour the coals to it. But if you try to do something at the wrong point in time, you're going to go for a ride.
A stick car, automatic car?
Well, it's an either or right now. Behind us is a transmission that possibly would go back into it. When I was in school, I had a 396 with a 4-speed, and I loved banging gears. You know, the automatic might have been a little quicker. But actually, since the 80s, I've had a manual, in and out, manual automatic 400 turbo. And that's what I have in it right now with a reverse valve body. And that's what's been in it since 81.
I love a manual valve body. That's what I run in one of my cars, my 700.
Both cars got manual valve bodies in them. I've always ran them that way. You know, I bought the B&M Super Trick Shift kit and put that in my 50, and unfortunately, it would shift itself. But you'd be going through town with a 3.5-inch exhaust on it, trying to be cool, and there's a cop alongside you, and this thing is just kind of hanging up in first gear until it shifts, and then when it hits second, it's barking the tires, and the cop's looking at you. It's already too loud. The tires are already squealing. It's like, this ain't cool. So I put, you know, that's what I like about the manual valve bodies. Of course, you have one, you know how they are.
Yep.
You put them in a gear, and you know. But so yeah, I've got a. I'm older now, and I'm still an idiot. You know, you'd think you get older, I drive like an idiot. I'll be the first one to admit it. When I'm in either one of them cars, I drive like an idiot. And I want the driving fun back. And manual automatics are fun, but there's nothing. If you've never drove a stick, I can't explain it, but if you drove a stick, you'll smile because you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, having a stick and just feeling the power and banging through the gears. I mean, it could have a 5-speed in it next year or this year, hopefully.
That's definitely a lot of fun with 900 horse and a 5-speed. It'd be a riot.
Yeah, it should be. I've had 396s and 402s, and you know, when I was at school, I never had dash lights in the car because I just let the clutch come back and speed shift them. and I'd knock the dash lights out of the car, and that was a riot. I don't think I'm going to do that with 632 though.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
I've got a pretty expensive clutch coming for it, so it's going to be it should work out all right.
Nice. Where do you think that car's going to end up in the next 5 years as far as build? What you plan on doing?
Well,
with it?
at that time I'll be almost too old.
Never too old.
Well,
Pat,
you know,
never.
that's the thing. You know, I had friends that were older than me, and I always felt better because they kept doing the same stupid things I was doing, so it made me feel comfortable. Unfortunately, a lot of them we've lost, and it hurts.
Yep.
It does, and hopefully, you know, I've done this so long, and I've started doing this when I was about 10. So, realistically, it's really hard for me to think I'd be doing anything else. It's kind of like asking a duck to stop swimming. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's just, you know, I don't even know how to take vacations because this is so ingrained into
vacation.
me. Good. Going on vacation, sitting home thinking about what part I can buy or something, or what I can modify, you know.
So we can actually talk about the car that's sitting in front of it right now.
Yeah, okay. That's a 1950 Chevrolet Coupe that come from Colorado. It originally was bright yellow, and it had a 327 in it when I got it, and it was bought in a car lot in Colorado. That was my first car. I had a choice between that and a 64 four-door Corvair. And I took,
That's a good call. I love Corvairs, but
I like Corvairs too, but not four doors, and I had to put a clutch in that one, so I couldn't even contemplate taking the rear end and the trans, all that out to put a clutch in. So my stepfather and my mom drove that back from Colorado. We were at my aunt's house, and I bought it. It's $2,500 right off Colfax Avenue in Colorado.
heck yeah.
It was a pile of miserable junk. So I'm assuming you're about my age, right?
I'm 43.
Oh, no, you're a lot younger than me.
I look that old?
No, I'm sorry. Some people tell me I look pretty young, but
You do look young, Pat.
anyways, there was
Bob Seger said if you never slow down, you never go old.
Yeah, there was a guy in town, and he lived off of Old Osaba Road, and his name was Frank Burrell.
Yeah.
Well, Frank used to do roll cages for Howe Racing, and Frank was a great guy, and he was doing a 53. And these cars have terrible steering on them. You can't even believe how bad. You think a straight axle with knuckles, you know, that's bad. Spindles, you know. No, them things were worse. And the problem, and the thing what's funny is they put that front suspension in a lot of the earlier Corvettes, and people get in them earlier Vettes and think they handle and steer, and they're great. It's a Corvette. No, it's basically an upgrade from a truck suspension, and not much better. So I cut the front end off of it, and I put a Camaro subframe in it back in the early 80s. And then, you know, a big block dropped in it a couple times, and I realized that the big block would fit just fine. I put a couple more in it, you know.
So what's in it right now for a motor?
Yeah, well, the old engine it was a 548.
You don't do anything small, do you?
No, because it don't cost any more to build a 548 as it does a 565. And then at that point, really, when you go into 565, it don't cost much more to go to a 632. And if you got the room, you might as well go right to the full hog. There's a 632 right behind you. While you guys leave, I could possibly sell you one. But anyways,
there you go, Greg.
So I had a couple of my engines in other cars that I just kind of shuffled them around because I had 3 cars at one time. And so I got rid of the old 548. That's around somewhere. I ain't going to say who's got it. But it's got a 548 in it again. And the only thing I did with this one is I lowered the compression.
Okay.
Because both of them were supercharged. So I got the supercharger on there. Everybody thinks that car is nasty. No, that car ain't nasty. That is nasty.
Is what's on it for a supercharger?
It's got a B&M on it, so it's basically a 420 some cubic inch blower. But the engine's already, you know, the blower's on there to make the carburetors work. That's what I tell everybody, because the cam's so big in them that it doesn't make enough vacuum for the carburetors to function right. But above the blower, as it's running, it's making enough vacuum, and the carburetors think they're on a normal engine. At the base of the car, at the base of the intake, it only makes about 2 inches of vacuum. Up at the carburetors, it's saying it's 15 plus, and it's happy.
Right.
So.
And that's why you're smarter than us.
Well, it looks cool. I had a friend, an older guy who was a good friend of my dad's. He was a machinist at Bay City Chevy, and he had the oldest hot rod in Bay City. Him and my dad, they used to be really thick, and they used to drag race. I was told across Belinda Street Bridge, and if you don't know what that is, look it up. That's a narrow bridge. My dad had a 34 Ford truck, the one that I was trying to put back together. He drove it with a Hemi in it. And Mike Peterson had a 31 Cadillac in a Model A truck. And Mike was telling me, because Mike was a perfectionist, everything on his truck was like jewelry. Everything was made out of stainless steel, chromed or nickeled. You know, everything. He says, well, if you're going to smooth out the firewall and do all that work on that, he says, you ought to polish that tunnel ram that's on your, at the time I think I had a 30 over 54 roller engine, nothing really big. You ought to polish that tunnel ram. I says, screw that. I said, if I'm going to polish something, I'm just going to put a supercharger on it. And I thought about it, and I said, well, the only way I'll put a supercharger on it is if I can shut the hood. So I got some blueprints, and I looked at them, and I realized that with a B&M, hey, damn it, I can put a blower under the hood of this thing, and it'll fit, and that's what I did, you know. So, but it's got a 548 in it. It's a 750 lift roller, solid lifter cam. You know,
it's rowdy.
It's rowdy. It's got a set of Dart CNC rectangular port heads on it. It's got a Lenati crankshaft, billet crank in it. It's all knifed, and yeah, and it's got a, you know, I think on my pictures on my page you can see it. My trade signature was always polish the lifter valleys, and that thing looks like a mirror. You know, I polished it all up. So yeah, it's not stock, you know.
Yeah, and I don't.
And it's not heavy. A lot of guys look at that and they think that car's heavy. It's light, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing there.
What's it weigh? Good ballpark.
Well, that car probably with me in it probably weighs less than 3,300.
It's pretty light.
Yeah.
Extremely light.
And that car's heavier. And we've raced these two. But this had a 548, and I had 548s in both cars.
Both of them, yeah.
And we ran them. Yeah.
In Mexico, or?
Yeah, it was around Mexico. It was,
okay.
Yeah, it was
Mexico adjacent.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we were just crossing the border. But yeah, and it makes things interesting. So, and of course, the engine I took out, this one makes a lot more power, but the old one was no slouch. You know?
So between the two of them, which one's more streetable? Like if you're going to go get ice cream.
Yeah, whichever one doesn't have the one that's going to be easiest to pull out is probably the one I'm going to drive.
That's fair enough.
I like driving the Chevy. The Chevy, because it's got a Camaro sub under the front, and you know, guys don't do that now, that you can buy a whole kit and bolt it under there. But back then they didn't have that. We're talking the 80s. You know, it drives so nice. It's smooth. You know, the GTO is kind of like going out and you're going to club some baby seals with a baseball bat. You're not, you know, you're not going to drive that car an awful long ways, but they kind of, when you drive them, they kind of demand, at least I think, you know, they want to be run hard. That's what they are. They're not street engines, you know. Somebody comes in here, I build them a street engine. I know what a street engine is. Somebody comes in here and says, you know, I want to go out and just lay waste to anything, and I don't care if it can limp around the block. That's good enough for me. So you know that they are pretty rowdy. The engine I took out to put the 632 back in. I don't want to make a long drawn out. Say, geez, oh man, that McCarthy, he sure can talk a lot. But
you're good.
The 632 had a crash. I made the oil pan for the 632. you talk about fitting and cutting things. I had to cut and fit a lot of the suspension and steering parts, and I didn't want to put a rack in it. I was bound determined not to put a rack in it. So I cut the cross member, made it my own oil pan, and of course it's a 632. It's got a 4750 stroke. That's a lot of strokes, so you got to make a pan that's going to work for that stroke. Yeah, and then you know, how much can I lower it, because now the oil pan's going to hit on the crossover. Well, the oil pan's got to clear the counterweights in the crank. So I did a lot of work on the front of that car, and yeah, it's you know, basically good for straight. You know, it's not.
That's right. It's actually fairly par for the course for most people who live in our area, where there's a lot of drag racers here. Something we like to go fast in a straight line.
Yeah. You know, it can make a corner in that, but it's. But I went through a lot of grief to make it difficult, and it wasn't. It wasn't necessarily a drop-in installation. It wasn't something you're going to drop in with a case of beer and maybe 2 boxes, 2 pizzas. You know,
using a lot of the equipment around here.
Yeah. I utilized just about every piece of equipment I had, and then a few that ain't here to get stuff to work. But you know, modifying, you know, pitman arms and dropping racks down, idler arms, and modifying all that, and you know, and building the headers and all that. So yeah, it all kind of, but yeah, it's a really big engine, and it's just, you know, it's not something you're going to want to drive to Saginaw and back, because it's just not that comfortable of a car, you know.
So do you have any bucket list cars that you love to own?
No, I'm done. I mean, I got it all out of my system. I had 3 cars. I had another GTO I wanted to race strictly at the track.
Yeah.
And that car was gutted, and that was, you know, that was one of them cars when I was younger that I made decent money when I was doing body work, and I'd take half of my check and spend it, or all of it, in a week and think nothing of it. And it just got to the point where I wanted to start a business, and realized that spending that kind of money on the cars wasn't going to get me a lot of work in the door, you know.
Right, and speaking of starting a business, let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
McCarthy Performance. You've been around for a minute, man.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a while, and I've done a lot of work for a lot of people. I think, like I said, that you know, it's just, you know, I was behind the scenes, you know, but which is okay.
Right, how long you been in this shop?
I've been here for 30 years. First got here, we were doing auto body work, and then at night, because I was doing body work at Ron Birch's Collision, one of them, shops. I worked at a couple of them, but mostly Ron's all my working career. And then it was A&M Castings up in Pitt County, was next to Ron's, and I did a lot of work for Ted. And then I just started buying pieces of equipment. Hey, you know, man, I do a little stuff at night on the GTO, but it'd be nice to have a Bridgeport J-Port. No, it's like one rolled up. It's like, oh, I better grab that, you know.
Right.
And then when I got to the point where my back was jacked up so bad I couldn't do body work no more, it's like, what am I going to do? Well, I started doing fab work here, and I started doing some Anglias and Duke's cars. I did a lot of work on all Duke's stuff, most all of it, and I just started doing that, and started building headers for people, and then I said, well, you know, I had a friend up north, and we were bringing in Harley heads, and we were doing them, and it's like, you know, we need some more equipment, and I'd buy a little bit more equipment, and then, you know, we parted ways, and I started getting deeper into it. It's like, you know, I was always building engines for people, and like, it's a Sunday night, and the wrist pins don't fit because I need 1/1000 or 5/10 knocked out of them. I don't have that machine. It's like, well, I'm not going to get paid, you know? And it's like, well, I want to get paid. So, you know, start taking the rods over to one of my friends and having them open them up, either Ring Automotive or someplace like that. And I had to start buying these pieces of equipment, because then I can do this on
do it yourself and not worry
and then,
about it,
you know, and if I don't feel good on a Friday, I can come in here on a Saturday or Sunday and finish up what I couldn't do. And nobody else was going to hire me, so that's what I did. And that's how I started this, basically. So, and I'm pretty much situated where I can do just about anything here that I need to do, and what I farm out isn't very much. So, yeah.
It's a good spot to be in.
Yeah, I probably don't have the biggest shop in here, but you'd be surprised the phone calls I get from people that own shops, who work at shops, who want me to do things for them. Well,
That's all right.
no, I have no problem with it, not one bit at all. But like I said, you know, a lot of people want new and shiny, and you know, when you start, you gotta start somewhere. You know,
Right.
A lot of the machines that I got, they needed fixing or they weren't working at the time. And some of the machines I built, this machine here, I built the whole complete machine. There isn't a part on this machine that I didn't make.
It's pretty awesome.
And that was because I couldn't buy that machine down there. That machine was at Ring Automotive, and they still were using it, and they weren't willing to let it go, and I wanted it. So I got some basic measurements, and I made one. Because what they wanted for them on eBay and used equipment, machine used equipment is silly. You can buy a J head mill like that. You can buy them relatively cheap, but that mill is only made to cut cylinder heads. That's 2 or 3 times the amount of money as you can buy a good J head is on eBay. So some of this stuff is specific engine related machine and tooling, and it costs a lot. So a lot of the machines I bought, they needed some help.
So of all the motors you turned out and used these machines on, is there one that sticks out that you always kind of remember?
Yeah, probably about 500 of them. When I build an engine, I pour a lot of me in it.
Yeah.
And if I had you know, like, I don't give a crap idea, I'm losing money on this deal, I'm just going to slam it together and let it go out the door. If somebody's got a problem with something that I've done, you know, it hurts me probably more than it hurts them. I've had engines that have gone out and set and won things. That's a group of engines. I've had shops call me up and ask me if I'm from this world, because they popped one of my engines apart and seen some stuff in it that they've never seen before, or didn't think anybody would be that stupid to waste that much time inside an engine and do.
Right. Surprise.
Because you don't see it.
Right.
You know, everybody looks at the outside and the price of it. They don't look in the inside. But no, not really. I mean, I've been involved with jet ski racing, you know, and they've won Shush Mountain a few times, and them guys are down the road from me, so they used to hang around a lot, you know. And we used to have some pretty serious bench racing here at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, drinking beer and eating pizza and talking until we couldn't talk no more. But no, there's any one of my customers, when they leave here, I've given them the tool to do whatever they want to do. And of course, the engine ain't everything, you know. Suspension is so important.
Oh, right.
And you know, and if they go out and they do something, I'm happy with them, you know. But whether they choose to put my name on their site, or, you know, congratulations, or, you know, hey, you know, I don't do that, you know, I don't take a picture of it, you know, congratulations, McCarthy built engine, I don't do that. But there's some people that do that, and I don't.
You take pride in your stuff. So.
Well, when it leaves here, you know, there's a lot of engines in this town that people probably don't know I built because people don't want to tell them. And
right.
there's probably about a half a dozen worth of cars in this town that I've been involved in that people won't mention my name on. And there's some people that will, and I'm not saying they're all that way, it's just some people are, you know. I mean, the hot rodding business is kind of funny. You know, guys want to do it themselves, and they can't afford to maybe pay, but then they want a professional like me to keep my business open and pay my bills, so their dream can come true. And I like helping people with their dream. But my dream is to be fat and happy and pay my bills. So there's got to be even me, you know, it's got to be fair. No, there's been a lot, I shouldn't say he's stuck up or whatever, but there's actually been a lot of engines. Yeah. I've got customers up in Canada, and I love them guys, and I had some guys down in Florida, and I had guys, you know, I've had my engines are a little here and there and everywhere. Some stuff has gone overseas. There's an engine I built over in Germany in a car right now. Hope it's still running good for them.
No news is good news.
Yeah, no news is good news, and I like that a lot. I don't like. I got a problem with my car. Well, what do you want to do? I want to strap a supercharger or turbocharger on that engine you built me. It's not big enough. Well, all you had to say is build me something you think I'm going to be happy with, or don't come in here with a handful of parts and say they're broken and fix it. And I mean, if you're going to spend the rest of the money to go with the engine, I'll build you the engine.
Right.
The problem is they usually don't have the rest of the parts. That's the problem with the GTO. The engine that's in that car, that's not a stock transmission. That's got the Vascojet input, heavy duty sprags, and all the reverse valve body and Cone super sprag in it, and still stated 9-inch Cone torque converter. I mean, there's $5,000 in transmission.
Because sometimes the stuff behind the motor sometimes, if not sometimes all the time, is just as important as the stuff in front of it.
Yeah, that's and the same with the rear end. So I put a Ford 9-inch under it when you couldn't buy a kit that you put one under them, and that's what I was doing for a while. Is guys with G bodies and A body cars, I'd cut up a Ford 9-inch and narrow it up, and so they could bolt it under their car, and that's what I did with that one, and. So it's got a 35 spine Detroit locker in it, so it don't break.
Right. Yeah.
But that's the thing, you get into, everybody thinks, well, the engine's not fast enough, and I really like to go faster with the engine. And it's like, yeah, but there's so many other parts that got to go with it,
There's a huge underestimation of power versus what it takes to get there sometimes.
Well, I had a customer, and I won't mention any names, but that engine don't run very good. Well, I built you what you wanted. I kind of, I even put a little more cam than I recommended because you wanted to sound snotty. And it's like, I'm talking to my buddy, I says, how can that engine run as good as he wants it to? And I look out, and there's like over 150 foot of black tire tracks out in front of his uncle's shop. And it's like, I told him, I said, you don't have to be a mathematical genius. I says, measure the diameter of the tire and figure how many feet that is. Now, if you weren't spinning that, now measure and figure out how many feet you would be ahead. Well, the car was spinning. Yeah, it's spinning through 3 gears. It's not going to feel fast.
No.
Maybe it's going to feel fast when you spin it around and hit a telephone pole with it sideways or something. But, these guys, it's like, you don't get it. You got to hook it. Yeah. But I call it flaring them off. I like that car. I like the 50. It'll break the tires at about 110 miles an hour. And if you keep putting your foot to it, it's going to keep breaking the tires off, or it may hook up, or it may not. But I just call that flaring them off because I do that with the GTO. I just blow through the tires, and I like driving stuff like that. And I got enough engine usually that I don't have a problem. Even though I'm doing stupid things like that, I can usually. Most people back in my day,
right? You take someone for a ride who's never experienced that, and you're going 60, 70 miles an hour, and do that, and they're like, "Did that just spin?" Yeah, it did, dude. Yeah, welcome to real power.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So that's it's more to it. I used to laugh. You go to a chassis guy. I know chassis guys. Oh, my car isn't going fast enough. You need a new chassis. Well, maybe he did need a tune-up, but and then you go to an engine guy. Well, my car don't go fast enough. Hell, go talk to the chassis guy. No, I'm an engine builder. I want to pay my bills and eat.
Right.
You know what you need? You need a bigger engine.
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it! I'm going to build me a bigger engine. Yeah. And then you go, and then when they go back and say, "Well, God damn it, the thing don't hook up and it don't do X, Y, and Z. You told me to do X, Y. Well, the damn thing's spinning. Now go see the chassis guy." Yeah,
Write your check to the chassis guy.
Yeah, it's So and I kind of caught on to that when I was younger, and I kind of got, I think I'm just going to try to be about all of the guys, so at least I can look in the mirror and say, "Yep, that wasn't a very good idea." Better talk to the chassis guy on that one, but yeah, so that's kind of how I got all into this stuff.
Yeah. So, with you doing all this in here, is there any other shops out there that have lent a hand, advice through the years, people?
I had a good friend that worked at Ring Automotive, and his name's Walt Engelhard, and Walt worked for a lot of different machine shops, and I liked Walt, and Walt used to do most of my work back in the 80s and up into the 90s when I didn't have the equipment. And I used to ask him, and he used to tell me how things were, and I had enough engineering sense or whatever that I could look at things and say, that's okay, but I want to do it this way. And the tools allowed me to, okay, you might do it that way, but I want to try it this way.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like maybe your uncle having the best kept top secret rib sauce recipe. He might not want to give it to you. Some people might say, it took me a lot to learn that, and you ain't paying that due, and
right.
And I guess maybe you can think of it that way on some respect, but Walt always gave me a straight, honest answer, and I respected that. I didn't know how to drive a 4-speed. When I first got my GTO, I had an automatic in it, and I wanted to put a 4-speed in it, and I didn't ask anybody how to drive a 4-speed. I put it in it, and I learned how to drive it. And about the third time around the block, I could drive it. About 2 months later, I was speed shifting it, blowing the dash lights out of it, and loosening up the bell housing from the back of the engine.
It's trial by fire.
Yeah. So and a lot of this stuff is some of the equipment that I got. I had to make it or adapt it, and it's like, well, I'm gonna build it. If I build it and I understand it, maybe better. And that's what I always used to do on a lot of the pistons and connecting rods when we were younger. We didn't have a lot of good stuff. We just spent a lot of time taking this piece of junk connecting rod and smoothing it out to like an old bar of soap and polishing it and going, there you go, and look at it and see how it was built and how it was designed. And, well, if you did this way or they did it this differently, maybe that'd be a good thing to do, A lot of that stuff has already been, set up where you just buy a part, A, B, and C, if the parts fit. A lot of times they don't. That's what this equipment's for.
I tell a lot of people that is like, there's a lot of situations that you're in that they're like, how are we going to do this? Like, look, you're not reinventing the wheel. Someone out there has done it and figured it out and a lot of stuff. And if you haven't, you got to go see someone like Pat McCarthy because he's got the stuff to get it right.
Well, yeah, because I am a chronic pain sufferer, I get moody at times.
Yep.
And people would come to see me and they want to ask me a question, and it's like they'd show up at the end of the day.
You want to go home.
I'm drawn out.
Right.
I'm sore. I hurt. It's like, what do you think of such and such? Well, he said this about you. What? Oh, don't come over here at the end of the day and ask me something, because probably you're not going to. And I do like the younger kids, and I think it's cool that they're into it. I don't think I'm that old that I'm away from it yet. Right. But I see people doing things and it's just like, why the hell didn't you just ask me? I would have told you. Why do you want to suffer? Why do you want to go through all this? But a lot of people, like I tell my buddy Fred Wicks, a lot of people don't have a clue what happened out here. They're either older, or which they'd have to be quite a bit older than me, or they'd have to be very young and not even know anything about me. And I'm not saying everybody should know me, but if you're into hot rods and you're in Bay City and you never heard of me, then you ain't into hot rods.
Right. That is very true.
Whether they like me or if they love me or they don't, they've heard of me.
A lot of people don't realize that we have so many good automotive people in this area.
Yeah.
And so is there any social medias that people can follow what you're doing on in here?
Yeah, I got a page. It's not a very good one because it's just me. McCarthy Performance. I do some pretty nasty hits. I've had guys send me a lot of aluminum cylinder heads. I've fixed them up, and there's some of that, and there's some broken heads. Guys got some cracks in some heads, and they don't make them no more, and wants me to pin them up. Or I've been doing a lot of the restoration stuff. I guess I'm paying my dues for all the Pontiac engines I tore out of these Pontiacs and put Chevys in them. So I've been doing a lot of Pontiacs.
Pontiacs, yeah.
Yeah, Pontiacs, Pontiac completes and earlier Pontiac stuff. And so I'm involved in that. And, you know, most of the stuff that comes through the door, if it's older, and I do a little bit of Subaru stuff. If it's not too far out of my reach, I'll probably do it. But, you know, I guess... you know, I get a lot of people that ask me questions, and I don't mind them sometimes. You know, I had a lot of people try to help me when I was younger, and but you know, I'm in this business to make money too, and it's hard for people to, you know, to understand that. You know, it's like, well, you know that you got a shop full of all these tools. You know, you should do this for like free. It's you make it easy. It can't be hard to do, so therefore I can do it. It's like, well, I'm not going to ever say you can't, but you got to have the tools to do it. And I'm still paying on them tools, so
right.
And I use them every day for my living. So no, I can't go out and borrow you something that I use every day. You know, I have to make an income with it. I have to have it.
Right. So breaks doing something for free, you can't make money out of it.
Yeah, so I mean that, and a lot of guys I think get uptight about that, because you know it's like, well, if you come over and I give you a couple beers and a pizza, you know, you do a $300 job for that, and it's like, God dang it, you know, I don't mind helping you,
right.
But that don't help me pay my bills, you know.
The pizza and the and the money it costs to do it.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing. I buy my own pizza and sit at home, thanks, but you know.
But sir, I want to thank you very much for having us in your shop.
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate you.
Thanks.
And guys, tune in for the next one. Thanks for watching.